Finally, if you've not come across The Greenish before, we're hosting the event. It's a platform for people who want to live their everyday lives, but just a little bit greener. And it's all about just sharing tips and ideas and not being preachy. And the focus tends to be around fashion, travel, home, family, and food. And food is, of course, why we're here tonight. I think that's all I need to say for now, and we'll get straight into the Q&A after a little introduction. Skye, Huw, Martha, Eleanor, thank you for being here. I hope you don't mind if I ask you to kick off with a little introduction to yourself and a quick summary of kind of what you do and where you'd say your expertise lies. Skye, you're top of my screen, so can we start with you?
Oh yeah, okay. Oh, I haven't really prepared anything.
No, I didn't ask you to, sorry. It's just very quick.
Okay. That's fine. It's always kind of hard to sort of describe yourself, isn't it? Well, my name's Skye Gyngell, and I'm a cook. I mean, I always primarily think of myself as a cook. So I'm often called a chef, but I guess that's just because I happen to work in restaurants and stuff, but I don't kind of consider myself really that. I have a restaurant called Spring in Somerset House, and I also that really, I suppose, primarily made a commitment 7 years ago to a farm, a biodynamic farm in Herefordshire called Fern Vero, and we made a commitment to take everything that they could grow for us. So they're kind of where we sort of sustain the farm financially, which has been a wonderful and fruitful relationship. And then I also look after 2 restaurants. I'm the culinary director of Heckfield Place in Hampshire, which is a hotel. And I look after the 2 restaurants there. And we've also been in a very long process of converting that farm down there to a biodynamic farm, which we've just got the certification for, which is amazing after 3 years. It came at the end of December. And I guess I have a strong interest in good clean soil. I do believe very strongly in organic and specifically work with biodynamic, and yeah, just a general interest in like how our industry impacts the environment, I guess. I think that's great. Yeah,
I think that's a very good intro. Martha, you're next on my screen. Can you go next?
Yes, I can. So my name's Martha DeLacey, and I used to be a journalist for about 10 years, and then I started a supper club as a cat here. I started a supper club in my house, which because I loved cooking and I loved writing, but I didn't love where I was writing, where I was being a journalist, and I'd always thought about doing a supper club. And then one day I just did, and it sort of started as 9 people who are friends once a month, and it kind of ballooned into sort of 100 people every weekend in my house for about 2 years, which was brilliant, if quite ridiculous. And I started making sourdough bread just because I love bread and I love toast and I like challenging myself to sort of create things, and sourdough seemed like the most difficult thing that people were doing. And so I started doing that, and then people who came to the supper club started asking if I could teach them how to make sourdough. So I taught a few people, and then again that sort of organically kind of escalated into me teaching sourdough classes in my house, which I didn't actually intend to. Here he comes again. I didn't intend for that to be my job. I thought I was still going to be a journalist, and then about a year in I just realized that I didn't have any time to do anything with that, and so I was just teaching these bread classes, and I moved it into fermentation classes in my house while doing catering and supper clubs. And then when the pandemic came, I moved it all online. So my supper club was called Muff Dining because my nickname has always been Muffy. And so I just moved it all online. I started a sort of private Instagram account, and it was like a teaching sourdough baking and fermentation and lots of other things on largely Instagram. And now it's a website called The Muff Kitchen, which is silly and ridiculous, but it's great fun. And so it's mainly bread, but it's also everything else, really. Lots of fermentation.
Brilliant. I think I'm a big fan, I've got to say. Ellie, you're you're on mute.
It's because the washing machine's on. I thought it was in the background wearing away. Hello, I'm Eleanor. I work at Gray's, the snack business. I have been there for just over 10 years, but I've been working in the food industry for 15 years. So I studied sort of Bachelor of Science in Food Science and Nutrition. So food has always been a passion, I suppose, and wanted to work out a way to kind of get into that world of work. So I've been very lucky to have always worked with food and in the food industry. Before I was at Grays, I used to work for Innocent doing innovation for the drinks brand, so juices and smoothies. And then, yeah, sort of latterly, I guess at Grays, the focus for the last sort of 2-3 years has been really honing in on kind of health and nutrition and delivering a strategy for Grays around kind of how we can help people make sort of healthy choices and how we can challenge the business to make our products even better. You know, there's always a balance with food, and you know, people want really great tasting, delicious food, but they also want really healthy food. And so as a business, you've got to try and bring those things together. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing more recently. But yeah, I've always worked in kind of innovation, product development, and coming up with new concepts, and also the kind of health agenda, which is, you know, it's a lot going on right now, especially kind of on a government level, with kind of removing unhealthy snacks from queues and taking them out of end of aisles, and how much do people want to have freedom of choice around just choosing what they want? Do they want government to get involved? Is it down to the individual? Is it down to food businesses? You know, this is all the kind of stuff that I've been working on for the last couple of years.
Brilliant, thank you. And finally, Huw Gott, please.
Hi, yeah, I'm Huw. I guess I'm a failed chef. I was certain when I was 16 that I really wanted to be a chef. And then I worked in a couple of kitchens and I realized how hard it is. I'm from a long line of Welsh family butchers. My parents have got a little cafe. I kind of grew up around good food. I kind of knew I wanted to work in food, and initially I thought it was as a chef, but luckily I got into it another way. So I set up Hawksmoor with an old school friend who I've known since I was 11. And we've grown from one small scruffy restaurant on a scruffy street in East London to 8 now, and we're on the brink of opening in New York in March last year, but that's been put on hold. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you, Huw. I never knew that you wanted to be a chef. That's got good tasting. I'm just blown away. We've got such a stellar cast. I'm really excited, and so I'm going to kick straight into the questions, if that's okay with everyone. So the first question is from someone called Rachel, who it's a bit of a recipe share query. Probably not in too much detail because we've got so much to get through. But Rachel says, "I'm so bored of the same old meals at home, especially with lockdown. I think lots of people are feeling it. Could you recommend something fairly simple to make that doesn't involve crazy ingredients or hours in the kitchen?" Anyone, whoever's got an idea, love to hear. Skye, do you want to go first?
Oh God, I mean, I think my go-to things at home, I tend to make something in bulk, and I tend to sort of maybe do it on a Sunday, and it's very often like some sort of soup actually, but I don't get home till quite late, and we're still at work at the moment, so it's something that I can make ahead of time. Anything you make ahead of time, if you let it like really settle down to room temperature and reheat, tends to taste better. So stews or anything are very often better the second day, the third day. And so I don't really any meat at home at all actually. So I would tend to make a huge like farro and vegetable soup, lashings. You can just put lots of olive oil in it, you know, have it with really good bread or toast, and that's definitely my go-to. Yeah, at home.
That sounds absolutely delicious. Ellie, what would you recommend?
I'm quite into sort of doing like Asian fried rices at the moment, because I always have rice in the cupboard, and I always have a weird plethora of vegetables, like, you know, like half a pepper, or, you know, a little bit of broccoli or something that's in the veg drawer at the bottom of the fridge. And so I just feel like whatever veg I've got, I can just fry it off with some kind of garlic, which I normally always have. You know, I quite like the frozen ginger and garlic, and, you know, you can buy chili and things like that frozen. It means you don't waste it. I think that's really useful to have stuff like that in your freezer. And then you can, it's just like boil the rice, and it takes, you know, less than half an hour, and you can add egg, or if you're vegan, tofu, or I quite often add load of like cashews or peanuts just to kind of bulk out. And my, like, it's just the whole family will eat it. My son will eat it, and it's just on the table in less than half an hour, and I can generally always cobble it together with what I've got in the fridge and the cupboard. So that's quite a good one, I find.
Sounds amazing. Huw, have you got a go-to?
Well, it's not really answering the question, but I think it's a good time to explore condiments.
Yeah.
I think one thing that it is great to do at the moment is to support restaurants, and one way to do that is to for a special occasion at home get a box in or something like that. But also restaurants are suddenly putting online jars of delicious things like salsa verde from spring, or kimchi, or their harissa, or exo sauce from Brawn, smoked chili ketchup from Quality Chop House. I think it's kind of a fun time to go out and find a few things like that can liven up lockdown meals.
I think that's such a good idea. And then Martha, what would you say?
I would sort of agree with you, because I find that, I don't know about the rest of you, I mean, Skye maybe running a restaurant, but when I'm catering things or cooking for lots of people, the last thing, and I know a lot of chefs, and we've talked about this a lot, the last thing I feel like doing when I'm home actually is cooking. I eat all my leftovers if I've got leftovers from events and things, but I've really loved being able to buy things from restaurants that don't normally sell it otherwise, you know, like restaurants that are doing takeaway things like Lyle's and the pizza place that they've just opened up, and Quality Chop House doing their boxes, and you can get some amazing stuff delivered to your house. It's my birthday on Thursday, and I'm getting stuff from Hyde delivered, which is just amazing. I'm so excited. And obviously supporting restaurants at the moment is just so critical. But if I'm not doing that, and if I'm cooking, I'm trying to think of the things I've cooked recently. I normally just have so much bread in the house, and if I'm teaching online and I'm showing people how to make, say, sourdough focaccia or sourdough pizza or sourdough ramen noodles, I'll then just make whatever I've been making during the day and teaching people and doing videos on how to make these things for dinner. But I'm also really lucky that I've got the most amazing greengrocers at the end of my road, and so I tend to just go and see whatever looks the best. And at the moment, I mean, I think that things that are being sold now and that are growing now, like, you know, celeriacs and Swedes and Jerusalem artichokes, I tend to just buy things like that and either turn it into a stew or a roast, or again, some kind of soup or something. But I think it's really good to go to shops and see what looks good, because if you go out thinking, oh, I really feel like, you know, something with courgettes today in the middle of winter, that you're going to go and they're going to be a bit crap and they're not going to be British. And if you go without those sort of intentions of making something specific, and you actually pick what looks really good, which will tend to be British, I think you can get a lot of inspiration just by doing that, really.
That's so true. That's so true. And actually, it's a really good time to be using Jerusalem artichokes, because none of us are going into an office.
Exactly. Why not?
I had to do some recipes the other day, and then the whole family was like an orchestra. So it's quite funny. No, those are really, really, really brilliant ideas. So coming back to you, Eleanor, we've got the next question is from someone called Sam, who says, everything seems to be a superfood these days. What do you think are the most important things we have to make sure we're eating to stay healthy without getting bored?
Good question. I think sometimes people overcomplicate, you know, I think people think they have to make big drastic changes in order to be healthy or be quite extreme. I think there's often this sort of idea of restriction, and you have to cut loads of things out in order to be healthy. And I think it's a better mindset if you can just try and think more about including lots of variety of things. So I think I always sort of talk about, I think variety is key, because then you're getting a variety of nutrients. So I think if you kind of start with plants, you know, plant-based is a good place to start, and then obviously if you're adding meat or other types of protein, that's fine, but I think a variety of plants is a really good foundation for eating well. So lots of different fruit, veg, you know, nuts, seeds, grains, pulses, you know, and I think sometimes, and it's easy to, you know what it's like when you go shopping, you just go on autopilot, and you're, even if you're online, you know, you've got your previous basket, you just end up buying all the same things. And it's a bit like Martha was saying, sometimes actually if you just thought, oh, I'm going to choose something different, what looks good today, whether that's in your supermarket or, you know, you go to, like, if you've got, you know, a local greengrocer or an outdoor sort of market, that's quite a nice place to start. And in terms of not getting bored, I think I quite enjoy just sort of challenging myself. If I've bought something, like, you know, maybe if you've never bought juice artichoke before, whatever it is, right, what could I make? Like, do some Googling, get your recipe books out, you've got the time, and try a new recipe or try a new snack or something like that. Because I think, you know, even if you buy, let's say, a carrot every week, is there a different way that you could eat that makes it a little bit more interesting? So I'm going to roast it, or I'm going to grate it and have it on top of a salad, or I'm going to make some sort of muffins. You know, there's lots of different things you can do with kind of things that might seem fairly mundane that you eat all the time. You know, you don't always just have to have it boiled or steamed or whatever it is like that. So I think definitely good variety of plant-based ingredients is a really good foundation. And then, you know, it's kind of obviously individual preference whether people want to eat meat, veggie, vegan, and then you're adding in your kind of healthy proteins, whether that be kind of meat or, you know, your tofus, your eggs, your nuts, those kind of things really help to kind of build on that foundation. And I don't think anybody needs to just, I think if you completely remove or cut out certain foods from your diet, you know, if you basically spend your whole time wanting that thing, you know, it's like if you say, right, that's it, I'm not going to eat chocolate at all, then all you want to do is eat chocolate. So I don't think people need to always feel you know, to go so extreme. You know, it's okay to have chocolate every now and again, it's okay to have a pack of crisps every now and again if your foundation is all these other healthy foods. So yeah, I would say that would probably be my principle. And yeah, just get creative with ingredients so you don't get bored.
Yeah, absolutely, it's a really good point, especially at this time of year. I think
we're at home, you might have some time maybe.
Yeah, that's true. I actually think I spend more time in the kitchen because it gets me away from homeschooling. Good excuse to get out. So the next question is about organic. I think it's probably probably everyone's got an opinion, but I guess Huw and Skye, I'll point it at you and anyone can chip in. It's from someone called Cloda, who says, when I'm buying food, does organic really matter? I think Skye's got a strong opinion on this one.
I mean, yes, I do. I mean, yes, I think it matters. Yeah, I think that food grown in healthy, clean soil without kind of industrialized fertilizer on it, and especially, I mean, I would definitely say it is really important. I mean, it doesn't always have to have an organic certification, because there are plenty of lovely small farms, and you can go to farmers markets who may not be organic, certified organic, but their practices are incredibly clean. And I think the thing is, it's also really important, just talking about nutrients in food, and obviously I'm not a nutritionist, but nutrients stay for a very limited time when they come out of the ground. Basically, as soon as they start to come out of the ground, they almost begin to die. You know, they stay alive in the ground. So food eaten that's really fresh is really important. I mean, I think this is probably very controversial, but I feel that, like, a blueberry from Peru that's probably almost coming up to 10 days old by the time you eat it, you know, is not jam-packed full of nutrients, where food that's grown very locally and in season yeah, I think it's important, and I think it's incredibly important for the environment. I mean, I think to support small farms that are practicing regenerative agriculture is a really, really good way to kind of it's a positive vote for the environment. They're great little carbon sequesters. So yeah, I do think it's very important. Yeah.
Okay. And Huw, would you, I mean, either in terms of meat, organic meat, or more generally organics, have you got a view on that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the principles of organic farming are massively important. Last year, no, the year before, well, beginning of last year, I spent a lot of time in the States looking for produce to serve in our New York restaurant, which involved going around lots of farms and ranches and feedlots. I kind of wanted to see every aspect of food production, particularly beef, but looked at lots of other things as well while we were there, and it was shocking. I think there are awful things happening in food production, and by choosing organic, you are sending a signal to the people who produce food that's how you want to spend your money. You're incentivizing those farmers to do more. You're incentivizing other farmers. There's an American farmer and poet called Wendell Berry who said, eating is an agricultural act. And I think that's definitely right. When you're making choices around food, you're influencing the system.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important. And I think as a label, it's useful to me when I'm buying food. I don't think it's always the be all and end all. And perhaps this is kind of Skye's point about the farmers who are doing things in an incredibly good way, but for one reason or another, cost or some of the issues that might come with it aren't signed up to organic. So somewhere like Coombs Head Farm down in Cornwall, where, and I don't think you can do things better, but they're not stamped as organic. Right. So I think the ideal is to get to know the producer and get really confident in how they're producing the food. That's not always realistic. So if you're left with an option of two sets of carrots and one's organic and one's not, then yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's a really handy guide, particularly in your like local Sainsbury's, right? I also really, really appreciate the point about kind of sending a signal to the producers and that indication that there is consumer demand for more of the same. Just following up from that question, Francesca has asked, and I think it's linked, what type of salmon, wild or farmed, is best for the environment or healthier to eat? She's had mixed opinions, and should she pick one or the other or avoid salmon altogether? Does anyone know?
Salmon is a hard one. Salmon is a hard one, and I think with some of these things, sometimes it is better to avoid it altogether. To kind of find the right thing that you really believe in can be an incredibly difficult process, especially when experts each week are saying completely different things. So I think like a valid response is, okay, I'm just going to step out of that. But I think there are farms that are doing it well, but just not that many of it. So I think you need to be really careful. I think a great alternative product that's out there that's readily available is chalk stream trout.
Yes.
Which is farmed in an amazing way.
Yeah. Well, it's can I step in there? Just like you might. So what I would say is, in terms of taste, I do not think you can beat wild salmon. It's the most beautiful, amazing flavor in the world. Should we eat it? No, not at this point in time, really, because it has been completely overfished. We do need to leave it alone, sadly. It's a thing of incredible beauty, wild salmon, but in terms of flavor, color, I have never found a kind of, in general, I don't eat farmed. I prefer to eat sustainable fish on line caught day boats, sustainable fish, which we have lots and plenty of. But I do completely agree. Chalk stream farm is a really unique product. because I think there's a huge bend in the river and the fish have a lot of room to swim. And when they get swim and they use their muscles, they get beautiful flavor. It's the kind of flabbiness of a lot of farmed fish because they're like probably slightly overcrowded pens and stuff. But I think we do need to leave it alone for now. Yeah.
Maybe we can get back to it at some point. It's good to know about the chalk stream trout, which I'd never heard of. Thanks.
It's
Really well anticipated my follow-up question.
You can get it on Farm Drop.
Can you? Oh, okay. Shout out to Farm Drop. I love Farm Drop. I can never get a slot on Farm Drop, but I love Farm Drop. So we're moving on to a bit of baking now. Muffy, I'm looking at you. Claire says, I'm new to sourdough. This is something I feel people were talking about in March. It went a bit quiet and people seem to be back on the sourdough vibes. She's new to sourdough, seems to be constantly feeding her starter and chucking out loads of waste. Is there anything she can do with it? I mean, it kind of sounds like your entire business model, but should she stop feeding it? Should she do something with it? What should she do?
Well, so when the first lockdown happened, it seemed that everyone suddenly jumped on the sourdough bandwagon, which was great for me and also hilarious for my family, who were like, Martha might be the only person to do well out of this pandemic. It was great fun. It sort of put me to work. And the main thing that people didn't want to do was throw away flour. And when you make sourdough, what you need to do is you need to feed your starter quite a lot, but specifically when it's warm, and it started to get very, very warm in like April, May. And so I was telling people that they needed to feed it 3 times a day if they could, because that really is the way to make the best sourdough, is to have a frequently fed starter, and then you're throwing away quite a lot. But what I realized is that people didn't want to throw away anything, and they also were running out of flour. There was very little flour around, and so they were really sad about throwing it away. And luckily, I never really throw any of my starter away. I put it into what I call my trash pot, and then I've created a bunch of recipes that you use this what I call sourdough trash for. And it sits in the fridge, and I've never really thrown any away. When you make a lot of bread, you don't really throw any away because you use the starter to make more bread, or you put it in your trash pot, and you can make things like crumpets and pancakes. And then I started people really wanted to know more things. So we started making cakes and brownies and noodles and gyoza wrappers and crackers and focaccia. And I have, on the Muff Kitchen, I have like sort of levels of things. So I call it, ancient trash, when it's so old it smells like paint, and it sits in the fridge and it's grey and it's disgusting, and actually that stuff is super flavorful, and you can use it for loads and loads of things. And then when you want to make something like focaccia, you use younger trash that's sort of still quite bubbly, but is also very, very acidic. And now my students are like, they're creating trash so that they can use it for things. And so they've got sort of these overflowing trash pots because they can't wait to have enough to make brownies, which require something like 400 grams of trash. So yeah, you never need to throw any away. There are ways of feeding a starter so that you don't actually even need to create any trash. If all you want is bread, you can do that. But there's so many things you can do with the trash, pancakes. What have I been making recently? I'm making some orange cakes tomorrow. I've been making cookies. And the acidity in the sourdough starter, because as it ages, it just gets more and more acidic, becomes just super flavorful and delicious. And no, you never need to throw any away.
Oh, what a good answer. I mean, I always feel like I'm the opposite end of the spectrum because I never feed it enough. So I'm always kind of scraping to get the last gram, but I need to feeding multiple times a day. Thank you, Martha. Okay, I'm going to jump back to you, Eleanor. Joe has said, I'm doing veganuary. So for anyone who doesn't know what that is it was plant-based diet in January. I worry that going at it without knowing much about what I'm losing from my diet might end up doing more harm than good. Is there anything I should be aware of?
Yeah, so I think, it sounds like in the news, veganuary's got like more people this year than ever before taking up, which is really amazing. You like with any, if you choose to sort of cut quite a lot of foods out of your diet, you do have to just be mindful of the nutrients you might then sort of be missing out on. And animal products do provide a lot of nutrients into our diet, so you know, we can't forget that. But I think it depends. So if someone's just going to do it for the month and they already eat a good variety of food, probably for the month they'd be okay. And you know, things like buying plant-based milks, a lot of those milks are now fortified, so I think the whole market has moved on quite a lot, you know, from where it was sort of 5-10 years ago. And now most, from the research I've done, most plant-based milks have some level of fortification, so that's a good thing. Sort of if you're just doing it for the month, you'd probably be all right if you're eating, you know, a variety of plant-based foods and getting some sort of nutrients through the milks. But if you sort of take to it and you want to reduce your intake of sort of dairy and meat, fish and eggs longer term, there's kind of a few nutrients, I'll just whiz through them, that you should be mindful of. So vitamin B12, there's one that kind of has come up, I guess there's been a bit more noise about it, so maybe people are aware of that, but you can't really get that from a plant-based diet at all, unless, as I said, the product's fortified. So that's one that they do recommend if people are choosing to go vegan longer term. It's worth looking at maybe taking a supplement for the vitamin B12, so that's one just to kind of be aware of. Calcium is also really important. So like most of, you know, we generally have quite a lot of dairy in our diets in the UK, and a lot of people get their calcium from that. Can be quite hard to get it from plant-based foods, because you have to eat, although, you know, you'll go online and say green leafy vegetables, good source of calcium, but you might have to eat like a whole head of broccoli to get the equivalent of like a small glass of milk. So it's not always like for like, and I think that sometimes it's a bit difficult for people to kind of get through all the noise and work out what's actually going to help. So calcium, again, most plant-based milks are fortified, so I think if you can look out for that, that's a good thing. So yeah, just look at the back of the pack and just see if there's calcium added to the you know, your soy milk or your oat milk or whatever else. Iron is one that we should be mindful of. You know, and again, sort of red meat provides really good amount of iron, and the iron that you get from meat sources is much more easy, it's more easily absorbed than iron that we can get from plant-based sources. So again, they're not like for like, and so it can be a bit tricky, but you can definitely, if you're eating a good variety of plant-based foods and things like, you know, pulses and lentils and nuts and seeds, you should be all right. But also vitamin C is important. So if you can try and eat vitamin C and iron together, if you're on a vegan diet, that will help your body absorb it. So small glass of orange juice with your meal, or, you know, add kind of peppers and other things in, you know, have some kiwi fruit for pudding, whatever it is that you can just increase your vitamin C to help with the iron. And the last one that people maybe don't know as much about in terms of kind of a nutrient that just be mindful of if you are going vegan is iodine. And again, that's something it's not sort of a sexy nutrient, maybe people don't know about it as much as your iron and your calcium, but it is important in the diet, and it is quite hard to get from plant-based sources. But I have seen more plant milks again are fortifying with iodine. And otherwise, as I said, that might be another one that if you're going plant-based longer term, could be worth thinking about a supplement to kind of just help support. It's important for thyroid function. So, you know, it's kind of just something to be aware of. But, you know, as long as people who are eating, you know, vegan diets do still have, back to what I said before, variety is key. As long as you can try and eat a good variety of foods, and those would be the nutrients just to be mindful of. And I know that there's a lot of good resources online. If you go to something like the Vegan Society or British Nutrition Foundation websites, they provide a lot of good information to kind of support people going on a vegan diet to make sure they're not missing out on nutrients. So I definitely try and use those resources rather than, you know, sometimes online you don't always get kind of the best information. So so good places to start.
Thank you. I also feel like they should have picked a better month if you're in Britain for going vegan.
Yeah, I suppose vitamin D is the other one that comes up, but that, you know, the government do recommend that we, especially at the moment, I know vitamin D's had quite a bit of press, but in the winter months that's definitely worth everybody taking a supplement, really, whether you're plant-based or not. They do recommend that we all take a vitamin D supplement sort of from October through to April, just because there's no sun to speak of, is there?
No.
We're not allowed outside now anyway, so even
As a completely unproven side note, since I've been taking vitamin D, I don't get hangovers. So if anyone else thinks there's anything in that, I'm going to start a paper on it, I think.
that sounds very
It's been quite handy, although I'm now doing dry January, which sounds as awful as Veganuary in January. Anyway, moving on to the next one. Thank you very much, Ellie. Back to questions about meat. So Huw, if I come to you, John says, I'm buying meat. If I'm buying meat in the UK, where should I get it from? And what does red tractor mean? And I'd really like to know this too, because our kids' school has red tractor meat and I don't know what it means.
So red tractor is a kite mark. It's a low bar. Oh. It tells you that the beef was, the meat was produced in the UK, which is a good thing. Practices in the UK are good. That's I mean, definitely compared to the States, but I think compared to anywhere in the world, practices in the UK are better. Right. Perhaps good is stretching it. Red tractor is a low bar. It doesn't do much on the animal welfare side. So another one to look out for is the RSPCA. I can't remember what it's called. They've got it. Animal assured. Freedom Foods. RSPCA Freedom Foods. And then obviously there's the Soil Association Organic, which also gives you more confidence on the life that the animals led. And then again, there are people who are kind of operating outside of those kite marks, opting not to use them, who are doing really good things. So if you can find one of those and feel really confident about it, then kind of ignore the rest. So for example, for chickens, there's a great farm called Foss Meadows. They're not classified organic, but their birds they live a longer life, they live a better life. They have their own protocols which go above and beyond the organic standard. So again, if you're stuck with a choice between two things that you know very little about, then I think all those things can be useful. Mm-hmm. But nothing beats kind of understanding how that specific thing was produced better, which I know is hard. I mean, perhaps it's useful to throw out some more specifics. Foss Meadows is great for chicken, for pork stuff. Coombs Head Farm which I mentioned down in Cornwall, and now doing boxes, which is great.
Because pork's got a really bad rep, hasn't it?
What's that? Pork? Yeah. I mean, there are very sad and depressing and horrible practices that happen in pork, in poultry. I mean, in all meat production. And actually, I think just on that Veganuary, I think it's great. I think the rise of veganism is brilliant. I think it's a symptom of people thinking more about how their food is produced, and it's not the conclusion that I've come to. I kind of feel like I've been on a similar journey to lots of people who have gone down that route, and I really respect it. But I think there are bad things out there, and really thinking about how your food produced is really important. Yeah. Just throwing out another specific in case it's useful is Lake District farmers who do amazing lamb. They also do beef and pork. So kind of finding. I mean, you can also. Am I right? I mean, you can buy prepared meat food from Spring. Amazing veal shin. I don't know if you can buy any. No, you can't buy any raw meat. No. But you can get a Hawksmoor box.
You can get a Hawksmoor box. Well, you can't this month. I think they've sold out.
They're all sold out.
That's really, really, really helpful. So kind of, I think the overall message is kind of buy less and better.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's massively important. Yeah, I think there's and it's so confusing. It's so hard, and I think there are so many issues across food production, animal-based, plant-based, like that need lots of issues that need fixing, and it's very easy to slip into kind of binary thinking. This is right, that's wrong, and I think it's usually more complicated than that.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful, and it's really clear as well. It really matches that sort of mood of the country. I guess that there is a bigger question about whether eating better is unaffordable for lots of people.
I think that's a real issue, and I don't know how to think about that. I really believe in eat less, eat better. That involves spending more money, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how you fix that bit. There's an amazing Tara Garnett, who leads the, I'm not totally sure what it's called, food climate board at Oxford University. She's kind of one of the leading, she knows as much as anyone else in the country on this kind of stuff. Okay. And she wrote an amazing blog recently where she listed the swings that have taken place over the last 20 years in terms of what people are told about what they should eat, and she kind of concludes that, like, I know, well, that she doesn't know all the answers. It's really complicated and it's difficult. So yeah,
I think that's a fair answer. Just kind of knowing it's not solved, and also
yeah. And I think for me, on a personal and on a Hawksmoor level, it's about trying to find people that I really believe are doing good things, and then supporting them by buying their produce, and thereby kind of encouraging other people to do more along those lines as well. Yeah,
makes sense. As a sort of side to that, before we move on to the next question, David is asking whether anyone knows about eels. It followed on from the salmon question, actually. So right about salmon, what about eels? Does anyone know anything about how ethically eels are brought to the table? I don't know anything about eels.
I think you should avoid eels, but Skye might.
I mean, I definitely don't think they're sustainable. Yeah.
Is that true? God, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't even know. I don't even know where you get an eel from. I mean, obviously East London. That's where everyone goes. So I'm going to come to Skye and Martha on this one. This is from someone called Kate, who says, "I want to eat seasonally." So going back to that seasonal question, what are your top 3 ingredients right now of seasonal local produce that you can get here in the UK?
Are you happy for me to go first, or? Well, I think actually, I mean, I think, look, honestly, in a way, you sort of think, oh, winter, it's kind of not, there's not a lot. I mean, I actually find winter one of the most beautiful times of the year. It's the most colourful time of the year if you look at vegetables. So, I mean, it is mainly roots and brassicas, but actually within roots and brassicas, there are absolutely a million things, you know, from, you know, collard greens to broccolis to, I mean, we finished cauliflower now, to all the different chards, to all the different cabbages. There's so many, from reds to hispies to January King to and they all have a slightly different flavor, and they're beautiful. And also, although we don't grow it in this country, it is the time of year for citrus. So, you know, beautiful blood oranges, Seville oranges. I mean, and I always take citrus from Europe, because I just couldn't actually imagine my life without it. You know, it's lemons have a couple of harvesting seasons, but they have a beautiful winter season. Pomegranates also, or quinces, apples, pears. I mean, it is quite a beautiful salad leaves. Like all the best salad leaves of the years are the bitter winter leaves. I think they're full of flavor, and vegetables have to work just that bit harder in the winter because you know, it's cold, the ground's hard, and actually that kind of the work they have to do to grow produces an incredible flavor. So I think there's a lot of beautiful things to eat at this time of year. Oh, I've lost you.
Sorry, I thought I could do something clever with a spacebar.
No.
I was just saying, I really love that, the idea that they have to work harder and that it tastes better as a result. I guess it's kind of true of the meat question as well.
Yeah, I've just for 1 second. Is that okay? I'm so sorry. There's someone at my door.
Absolutely fine. We'll move on to Martha. What would your response be to that question?
Well, I've already talked about Jerusalem artichokes, which I'm completely obsessed with. I just cannot get enough of them. I've just always been obsessed. You can do so many things with them, from, you know, soups to chop them down really finely and make a kind of Jerusalem artichoke risotto, to deep frying them to make crisps. They make the most amazing crisps. I agree with Skye completely that I actually love winter. I find that in the summer, all I really want to do is eat a tomato and go swimming. And I don't really put much energy into cooking. Whereas now, you have all these lovely things. Like I made some swede mash the other day, and swede just even better than potatoes, which I do love a potato. Also sprouts. I quite like Christmas this year, because normally there's sort of 16 people in my house, all demanding, well, actually my parents' house, all demanding different things. And you end up with this sort of table of mad things that is just too much stuff. And everyone wants sprouts done in a different way. And so this year we did like a sprout slaw. So I did brisket with some roast potatoes and a sprout slaw. And that's, so sprouts and brassicas and things like that, actually eating them raw is really delicious. And lots of people think you can only really cook them. I mean, the idea of having sort of a sprout salad to most people is completely ridiculous. But things like that, or like spring greens or even kale that you just rub oil into and make them really delicious raw things. You can actually have lots of lovely fresh things in the winter. What else have I been eating? Lots of, you know, celeriac, and I think just anything that's deep and intensely flavored can be used just like a potato, but better, really. Yeah, I think winter, I completely agree with Skye. I think that winter's one of my favorite months for vegetables. I think just go to your local farmers market or greengrocers and see what they've got. I mean, at the moment they're not really operating, but Victoria Park Market near me, there's a guy who I can't remember what his farm is called, but it's an amazing organic farm somewhere down in Suffolk, I think. And I just go every weekend and see what he's got. And now it's not on, unfortunately, but it's just, you go to him and you ask him what he's got, what he thinks is really good. They'll have like amazing winter herbs that they've got growing, and things you've never tried before. They grow like, weirdly, they grow quite a lot of exotic Asian herbs. So I tried this amazing lemon Thai basil that tasted almost exactly like lemons. And this wasn't in the winter, but it's basically, the idea is that you just go to people who are selling the stuff from having grown it themselves and ask them what they're selling and what they think is best. And, you know, as long as you add enough salt and olive oil or butter to things, then anything tastes
absolutely. Right. Fat and salt, and we're all okay at that point.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So there's a few more questions left. I'll try and whiz through them so that we can we'll either get to bed or get to dinner. So I think this is mostly for Huw and Skye, but I'm sure Martha and Eleanor will have views on this that you might want to chip in with. And it's a question about waste. How do you deal with food waste, particularly at the restaurant, from packaging to leftovers? And, you know, have you got any tips for people at home about what they might do and how to kind of approach waste generally?
Me?
Yeah, go for
Sorry,
it.
I don't know. Yeah, I can only see you on the screen. Okay. Well, I mean, definitely at home, I tend to buy. I buy little and often, so I don't do a huge weekly shop. I find that kind of huge weekly shop, if you go somewhere, you can be incredibly tempted. And I think lots of things have changed, like now in supermarkets, like I'm not sure if they still offer the 2-for-1 deal, but like, you know, it's kind of really tempting to buy 2 pizzas for the price of 1, but you don't really need the second one. And so I tend to buy buy little and often, and I mean, it sounds so insane, but I buy 1 or 2 tomatoes, you know, I'll go and buy 2 pears, you know, because and so I kind of try and keep it very small at home. At work, we kind of entered onto this huge food waste program. Like in 2016, we started something called the Scratch Menu, and that's a menu that we serve every night between 5:30 and 7, where we just food that you'd otherwise kind of discard, we kind of try and make into something. So we do a million different, you know, so many different things. But actually, you know, Martha makes a lot of dough, but we actually remill a lot of our sourdoughs that we make at the restaurant back into flour and use them and make and remake. We dry it out in the oven and we remill it down, and then we make these kind of, they make really lovely, kind of incredibly beautiful textural cakes. We do a kind of soaked syrupy one like that, and things like crazy things like all the coffee milk we would turn into make yogurt and then strain it and make labneh and use it on there's a million kind of innovative things. And then I think just in terms of like especially vegetables, like we definitely, there's so much of the vegetable that's really beautiful that you don't need to waste. Like I think cauliflower leaves, for example, are almost more beautiful than the cauliflower. They taste kind of greener, more peppery, and we might blanch them and grill them and, I don't know, serve them with a little bit of chili. Or all the stalks from herbs we keep and we cook them down for a really long time. We make this kind of super herby jam, like herby jam that you can actually keep in the store cupboard for about 6 months, and you can just dollop it on a bit of kind of, you know, grilled lamb or roasted lamb or beef, or just stir it through a soup, or put it with some pasta if that's what you wanted. So, you know, all the cuts of pasta, we just cook and make rags or put into soup. Like, I think there's lots of, there's so many things that you can do. Once you kind of open that box, you know, there's just about everything can be repurposed and reused.
Yeah, that's such an amazing way of looking at it. And I think it really is just kind of stop before you get to the bin and Google it. This is quite a recipe that you can make, isn't there? What about you, Huw? How do you deal with waste at Hawks Moor?
Well, I think kind of minimizing waste, exactly as Skye said. I'm ashamed to say that we don't go as far as Skye does. Perhaps that's something we can work on in the future. We obviously try and minimize everything as much as we can, and staff food traditionally in restaurants is the place to use up all those bits and bobs, which are great but kind of aren't picture perfect for the diner's plate. And then, I mean, with this stop-start year that we've just had, we've had more food waste than ever. And we've been working with a range of different charities who have helped pick that up. We've been turning it into meals and then distributing it to various community projects. And then kind of when the restaurants are all up and going, it varies a bit from site to site. In some, we've got really forward-thinking landlords who have kind of got all these measures in place. That means we can do things incredibly well. And then one of our goals for this year was to lean on the various different providers that we use at the other restaurants to get them all up to the same high level. But it's definitely an issue within the industry, and I think it's great that more people are talking about it and doing things about it.
I mean, I don't know if you agree, Huw, but like I think in general, food waste is very expensive for restaurants. So in general, we work really, really hard to keep to minimize waste, because it financially for us, it's that's where our money is, and our food costs, our wage costs, our rent. So I think in general, restaurants are probably tighter than a lot of homes, really. And actually, I mean, there was a point, I don't know what the statistics are now, but for quite a long time, most Britons threw out almost a quarter of their fridge every week without eating from it. There was a huge amount of I mean, food waste is such a huge issue in terms of a third of all food grown in the world never actually even reaches the shop shelf. I mean, waste happens a long time before it comes to our house. It's really, really a strong part of the industrialized foods. It's a huge problem in the industrialized food industry. And not just a rant and rave, but that the depletion of the soil from that over farming and, you know, it starts way back before it gets to the house, you know, but we can all improve our own just little. And I just think generally little and often. Don't be prey to all the big advertisers who try and sell you food that you probably don't need, or yeah, sorry.
Really helpful points. No, don't
Yeah.
apologize, it's really handy. So I have got a question about biodynamic farming, yes. Which probably makes sense to follow on from there, Skye. I'm going to come back to you again, Skye, because you're definitely the expert on that, unless anyone's got a secret biodynamic habit that I don't know about. So it's a question from someone called Phoebe, who says she'd just like to know a bit more about what it means in terms of food and farming.
Yeah, okay. I'm definitely not an expert because I'm not a grower, but biodynamic farming is a principle that was founded in kind of 1926-27 by Rudolf Steiner, who you probably know a lot from, you know, the Steiner schools. I guess he's the most well known for. And it actually comes from one day's, he did 6 lectures in one day, and the whole kind of principle of biodynamic farming came from that. And put really simply, it's kind of like an almanac for farming, I guess. So the whole calendar of the year is set out on basically fruit or flower days. So you have special days in which you plant things where, so I guess we can see the moon and the sun, but there's a lot of other planetary forces that really contribute to, you know, there's a lot of they believe there's a lot of kind of sort of unseen forces that contribute to fertility and growth, and so it's planting basically by a lunar calendar. The moons are very important, and then in terms of, especially for biodynamic farming, and actually I don't know if any of you have seen Kiss the Ground, but there was an expression in Kiss the Ground called "we need poop in the loop," and we definitely need, animals are an incredibly important part of benefiting. Although they've had a really bad rap, and I know Huw was talking, and I know a little bit about farming practice in American meat farming, and also huge feedlots and things. But actually, animals, really good regenerative little farms are amazing. I think I said it a bit before, but they are carbon sequesters. They're incredibly good for the environment. And so it's looking at the whole picture. It is organic. In order to have a certification for biodynamic farming, it's a little bit further. It takes 3 years instead of 2. Okay. It's Demeter who give you the certification. It's not it's not a vast expense, but it is. There are a lot of practices that you need to kind of. You need to practice a lot of things like the 100 spray, or it was just very important day last week, which is the 3 kings, where you put frankincense, myrrh, frankincense, and what's the other one? Frankincense, myrrh. The 3.
Gold.
Gold, yes. On the, you have to. There's a special spray, and so it's. I think some people might think it sounds a little bit kind of bonkers, but actually, if you think about, we have also traditionally, you know, run our lives by the sun. We get up when it's light, we go to bed when it's dark. It's really just kind of being more in tune with what's around you and taking guidance from the planets.
Yeah, it's really
that helpful.
I don't know. Super helpful. And I think it's just, I mean, certainly in my limited world, it's something that I heard of in wine quite a long time ago, but it's talked about a lot more in food now.
Yeah.
I'm glad someone's asked the question so that I can find out more. And then the last question, I think it's quite a nice question to finish up on, is for all of you. And this is from someone called Louise, who says, Being at home makes me want to snack all the time, but I'm not into buying packets of biscuits. I love to cook and bake, but need some ideas. What do you make to snack on? So if you were having something, not a meal, just something to kind of fill a gap, what would you make? Ellie, do you want to kick off? Sorry,
I'm a massive savoury snacker. That I've got a huge salty savoury need when it comes to snacking, not so much on the sweet side. So that I would always go to like something for that really. So I always tend to have like oat cakes and stuff in the cupboard, which I could just put like peanut butter. I'm a bit of a nut butter fiend, so like cashew butter or peanut butter or something on some oat cakes. Like, or just like hummus and things in the fridge that I could just dip something in quickly. I have to confess I'm not like a massive baker, but Martha's here, so that's fine because she can give you much better advice on that. Just because I'm more into savoury, so I would quite like just stuff I can easily like open and pick on, like, or just from the fridge and have a bit of cheese on an oat cake or something like that. Yeah, that would be my go-to.
Nice, that's such a good idea. I'm also just like eyeing up Skye's kitchen.
We're getting a glimpse.
Huw, what would you go for?
I'm not a massive snacker, but one that my 6-year-old son came up with recently that's become popular in our house is I guess it's kind of 2/3 yogurt, 1/3 peanut butter, and a bit of honey or maple syrup, maybe a few nuts on top.
Oh, that sounds good. He might be the chef that you wanted to be. Okay, Martha, what would you make?
I just have endless mounds of bread in my house, which most of it leaves the house and goes to other people, but I always keep some back, and if I'm not going to eat it all, then I'll slice it up and put it in the freezer. So when I was doing supper clubs, if I have people coming to help me, I've got about 3 drawers in my freezer just constantly full of sliced bread. So I just take one out and toast it, because I eat toast constantly. And I'm like Ellie, I'm really a savoury snacker. I don't tend to have biscuits in the house ever. And if I make them, or if I make cakes, they tend to go to other people because I'm just not particularly interested in them. But toast, I'm very, very interested in. And just a slice of toast with whatever kind of vegetables, or even just olive oil and some salt and vinegar on, all the time. I'm toast and cheese. I cannot get enough of it.
You never get bored of bread?
Never, ever. People always ask me that. Never. I mean, I sometimes get bored of making, I get bored of making the same thing, so I never make the same thing ever really. People always ask, well, what was in that loaf? What was in this loaf? And I can't really tell you often, because I just throw things in and I know that it sort of is going to turn out okay, or looks right. But I make a lot of bread with cheese in. So sometimes bread will have cheese and Marmite inside it. So often it doesn't even need anything else on it. But yeah, toast doesn't ever get boring.
Okay, brilliant. And Skye, what would you go for?
I mean, my last meal on earth would be bread and cheese, I have to say. Yeah, I'm savoury as well. Yeah, I can go for oatcakes too, like a bit of honey. I love butter. Yeah, I mean, I don't bake anything for a snack. I mean, I think probably Martha said it at home, but like, I mean, I don't cook. I mean, I feel very disappointed, because people always say, oh my gosh, my poor children, they used to say all the time, oh, you're so lucky that you grew up with your mum. You must have, and they were like, and they're literally such good little cooks because of it, because they just were completely, you get home and you just don't really cook. So I would go to bread, lots of butter, and a big slab of cheese. I mean, like a dog. That's what I could do.
That sounds absolutely incredible. What a nice thing to end on. A lot of bread and cheese. So yeah, that's it. I think we've managed to get through all the questions. Thank you all so much for your time and your ideas and your answers and your thoughts. I've learnt loads. I'm sure lots of other people have too. If you're in the audience and you don't feel like we got around to your question, drop me a line. You've all got my email and I will try to get it answered. although people are very busy. And in the next few days, I will send over a recording of tonight. It always takes me about 3 days to remember how to get from Zoom to YouTube to get it online, but it will come when it comes. And I will also send with the recording links to some of the things we've talked about tonight, some of the places, farms, ideas, people, anyone you should follow and things like that. And that's us done. Thank you very much, Skye, Martha, Eleanor and Huw, and to everyone who came along.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ellie.
It's been a real pleasure.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.